Alrighty, welcome to episode 7 of the HamburgerTrained podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about Ray Williams failing his drug test and receiving a ban. I received astronomical amounts of shit on Reddit in the powerlifting subreddit when this came up, and some other previous stuff where some pretty high-ranking drug-free powerlifters recently have failed some drug tests, where I just mentioned, like, hey, a lot of unintentional doping happens, and a lot of it is due to tainted supplements and stuff like that. I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt when they claim that, because there's got to be some sort of level of leeway here, because this does happen. Because I mentioned this perfectly reasonable, logical, evidence-based standpoint on something like this, people tore me a brand new asshole because they've only ever read memes to get their training and scientific information. So we have a whole generation of people coming up in the sport that's how they learned literally everything that they know. So I just wanted to go through and talk about his situation a little bit, talk about some other examples of unintentional doping on big sports stages, and then talk about some research that exists out there that talks about exactly what your chances are of unintentional doping if you're taking over-the-counter dietary supplements, because it's pretty astonishing how many people have probably been exposed to performance-enhancing drugs by accident, really by accident, compounds that are not listed on the labels of dietary supplements. So, first off, anywhere from 40% to 100% in some studies of athletes use some kind of over-the-counter supplement. As athletes get to higher and higher levels of competition, the usage of supplements for sports performance, enhancement goals goes up significantly. So especially in, you guessed it, strength and power sports and longer distance endurance sports and stuff like that. These are the athletes that are using pre-workouts the most, recovery stuff the most. Believe it or not, supplement use seems to be lowest in gymnastics and some other tactical sports like that. But there's not a lot of gymnasts that are, snorting 3 scoops of their pre-workout and then getting on the bars or anything like that. So it seems there isn't very much data either on exactly how much unintentional doping happens, because it's a very hard thing to prove. There's a strict liability on the burden of proof through the World Anti-Doping Agency, the organization that tests all these sports and tests powerlifting, the one that caught Ray Williams. So a collection of data by Outram and Stewart in 2015 from the US, Europe, and Australia estimated that up to 10% of all positive drug tests, all positive doping tests, are unintentional. One study from Norwegian athletes in 2022 estimated that 26% of all doping violations for the period of time this study was on, this went on, was unintentional. So that's a quarter. That's a pretty drastic number. But realistically, let's be real. There's tons of athletes that'll just jump to this, where they say like, oh, I don't know, it was in some of my supplements and stuff like that. You can tell the people that are completely full of shit with this, because they say like, oh, it must have been in some supplement I was taking. Oh well, like, I'll figure it out. Like, no, you take that, if you get in this situation and this is you take all of the supplements that you take and you find a lab that will test them. You need evidence. You need to send WADA samples of what you're taking. There is a process that you can actually get cleared from this, but you can tell the people that are completely full of shit, because they'll be like, oh yeah, it's definitely this whey protein that I'm taking that came back with all this Winstrol that I tested positive for when I dropped all this body weight right before my competition, something like that. But realistically, this does happen to people, and there are significant, there's actual studies on people serving suspensions and then coming back from doping, and their athletic performance decreases, their psychological well-being is worse, their financial, professional situations are worse. Many times people serve a doping violation, come back and just have a very negative view towards sport and their sport in particular. I've been around powerlifting for a long time. I can't even count how many times I've seen people serve a doping suspension, test positive for something, and then like are all pissed off at that federation for the rest of their lives because they failed a fucking drug test because they got caught cheating. So let's talk about Ray Williams a little bit here. So USADA, USA Anti-Doping Agency, issued a 16-month ban to powerlifter Ray Williams after he tested positive for heptaminol. I'm not a chemist. I'm going to fuck these names up, so sorry. Just bear with me. Heptaminol at the 2025 Powerlifting American Classic Open Nationals. Williams claimed, and USADA actually accepted, that he unknowingly ingested the banned stimulant because heptaminol is clearly on the WADA anti-doping list. Something else that's used in a ton of pre-workouts, a ton of stimulant-driven supplements that are sold as like a pre-workout or a fat loss supplement or something like that. DMHA. So, I mean, you can find that on a lot of labels and stuff like that. That DMHA and the heptaminol were not listed on the ingredient label, but what was listed on there was 2-amino-isohepta. So that creates this metabolite heptaminol after you ingest it. So it's really interesting. This is very similar to the whole 1,3-dimethylaminoalanine, the DMAA stuff from the original Jacked 3D back in the day, where 1,3-DMAA was not on the WADA list of banned substances, but you had, I believe it was the Air Force. Like, it turned out that 90% of positive Air Force pilot tests were the ones that tested 90% of the ones that tested positive for amphetamines was because they were just pounding Jack 3D before they got into their planes, and they had no idea that they were accidentally taking something that was creating amphetamine metabolites. So it looked like they were all on meth flying their planes around, which DMAA literally is accidental meth. It's pretty crazy. But similar situation here, but 2-amino-isohepta is what was listed on the ingredient label, and that is not a banned substance, but its metabolite is. So according to the experts on Reddit, we'll defer back to these fucking psychopaths. So before Ray Williams' flight to the competition, TSA flagged his pre-workout. They didn't screw the cap all the way back on after they checked it and tested it and everything. It spilled all over his bag. He did not realize that it spilled. He didn't realize that he didn't have any of his pre-workout until he got to the competition. And another athlete let him have some of his pre-workout. The supplement was apparently reformulated in October 2024 to contain the banned substance, which technically is not a banned substance. It's not on the list, but its metabolite is, again. And it just happened to be that Ray had this supplement from that batch. So, shitty luck, bad luck, just a whole series of shitty events, and that sucks. I mean, I don't know Ray very well personally. I've talked to him a few times in real life, and he's been nothing but a nice person, a nice, humble guy. I don't think anyone's got a negative thing to say about him at all, anywhere, ever. So, I mean, I kind of believe him in this situation here. And plus with Ray, he's been at the top of his weight class in this sport for 15 years, at least 12 years. And, I mean, you're probably going to have a hard time finding someone that's been more in and out of meat pee tested and more in and out of meat blood tested as him. So, you know, especially in 2015, about 10 years ago, WADA revamped all their... they have basically a whole new form of isotope drug testing they do that detects minute levels, crazy small levels of drugs in your system. So somebody passing the number of tests that Ray has, both pee and blood tests, I have a very hard time believing he's just been beating these tests. Regardless of what the internet says, it's very hard to pass multiple drug tests over a long period of time now with the way the new testing is set up. So this, Ray said he has no plans of retiring. He's going to come back and compete. But like I mentioned, there's studies on this stuff, even unintentional doping, intentional doping. A lot of people come back from their bans and just aren't the same. It's just not It's just not the same. But hopefully he's one of the statistical anomalies, like he is with everything else that he does, and he can get it. So there's a couple of things to really take into consideration here with this specific case. So DMHA is listed on the WADA prohibited list, but the supplement ingredient label did not mention it. So, I mean, unless you're doing tons of your own research, or you are a chemist, or you're getting stuff third-party tested yourself, or you basically have to buy stuff that's third-party tested, that other people have tested, or else you're just not going to know. There's no way you would have known that 2-amino-isohepta, unless you specifically looked it up and looked at, like, hey, what does this metabolize into? Because, and a lot of times you're going to have a hard time finding that information too. So, a lot of times these supplements contain ingredients under alternative names, which is the issue here. There's no FDA real oversight in the supplement industry, so they can do and say pretty much whatever the hell they want to. But the U.S. USADA, USA Anti-Doping Agency, did listen to Ray's case, determine it probably wasn't intentional. So actually his 16-month suspension is dropped down pretty significantly than what the ban initially was. USADA does have resources, globaldro.com, and there's educational guides and stuff for staff, for support staff and athletes alike. But yeah. So this, definitely not just a powerlifting issue by any means, but and ultimately the way WADA is set up, the way USADA is set up, it's on you. You are responsible for what goes into your body, all the compounds, all the food, and everything else. So a false positive is on you to prove that it's unintentional, and it's pretty goddamn impossible. And I have a couple of cases here where you can see how tough this is. So Shelby Houlihan's unintentional doping. So Shelby Houlihan competes in the 800. She's the American record holder in the 1500 for women, and she competed in the 5,000 meter run, which is fucking bananas. Those people are insane. So in December 2020, Houlihan tested positive for nandrolone, which is a banger. That's that Ben Johnson stuff right there. An anabolic steroid that, straight up nandrolone is on the list. It's banned. There's no confusion there. It's been on there probably longer than any other anabolic steroid compound. So it's on the WADA ban list. No argument there. So her argument here, she had trace amounts of nandrolone when she was tested, consistent with food contamination, not deliberate doping for performance enhancement. So we're talking so far under the level of taking for performance enhancing purposes that it's negligible. You wouldn't see any benefit at all from this. She claimed the positive test was due to eating a pork burrito from a food truck approximately 10 hours before her drug test, which sounds insane from a layman perspective here. But a fall is pork organ meat that a lot of times, if you go to authentic Mexican food restaurants or food trucks like this, you're probably getting a fall in your tacos and your burritos, not tenderloin pork meat that's been all ground up. And believe it or not, in pork organ meat, nandrolone is super high occurring, both nandrolone and nandrolone precursors, so stuff that can turn into nandrolone metabolites in your body. So her legal team argued that certain cuts of uncastrated male pig meat, boar, intestine, liver, etc., can cause a false positive for nandrolone in urine samples. Houlihan's experts claim that the timing of the food ingestion and the detected levels pretty much exactly match a food-based nandrolone exposure and not intentional doping. But the problem was, because she didn't have any actual meat samples for testing for WADA, they didn't believe it. She still got a 4-year ban, which means she missed the Tokyo Olympics. She missed the 2024 games as well. So she was out for 4 years because she ate a pork burrito before right before she did her event and got tested and everything. So as food contamination angle of it here sounds a little crazy, But I mean, it's not. USADA has a position stand on their website that states exactly some anabolic agents are legally used in U.S. livestock under strict regulation, mainly with beef cattle. And we have extremely low risk of meat causing positive doping tests here in the United States. But we have major issues in other countries like Mexico, China, and Latin America, where they're allowed to just blast clenbuterol into their animals, where any low-level positives now at this point are considered atypical findings, and there is some investigation into the meat contamination. But this position stand has been around for a really, really long time, well before Houlihan tested positive. So it's just kind of surprising they really didn't pursue any kind of investigation with this, unless the food truck just fucking packed up and left town or something like that right after this happened. I don't know how they didn't. It takes a little bit to get the results of a drug test back, so it might have made it difficult to find that exact same food truck again. But anyway, so the moral of the story here is, especially if you're in other countries that aren't the United States, athletes can reduce risk by avoiding organ meat, street food, and meat of unknown origin, especially when abroad, obviously, because you could very well get something there. All right, one of my favorite unintentional doping cases of all time, John Bones Jones. This is amazing. So in 2016, John Jones tested positive for clomiphene, an estrogen blocker, and letrozole, an aromatase inhibitor. So these are two things that people take after a cycle of performance-enhancing drugs to try to get all their hormonal levels kind of back in check and not have any like weird, drastic rebound side effects from hopping off of all these anabolic compounds. So he was pulled from the main event just days before a fight and received a 1-year suspension. This is the most amazing defense team in history that he assembled, because they argued that he did cocaine at a party, which was cut with creatine that contained trace amounts of the banned substances. So he claims, his defense team claimed that he did a bunch of cocaine at a party. Cocaine is commonly cut with creatine to give it more weight, because the crystal size of creatine and cocaine is almost exactly the same. Like, you can't tell the difference from looking at it. And then the argument was the creatine was manufactured in some sort of manufacturing process where it actually got tainted with clomiphene or letrozole. So that was the argument. So because tainted supplements or drugs, the levels were, again, extremely, extremely low. It was too low for a therapeutic, to be considered a therapeutic dose. It was considered a trace exposure. They did independent lab testing and produced all these studies and research articles and stuff like that. So actually, because of this argument, the arbitrator panel concluded that Jones did not intentionally cheat, but he bore significant fault for doing a bunch of cocaine at a party, pretty much. So he received a 1-year suspension versus a 2-year suspension. But this was just super, super interesting, because Jones basically proved that the cocaine that he did was laced with creatine that had unintentional banned substances in it. It's just very, very, very interesting. So he actually, another interesting point in this case was he did several drug tests leading up to this fight, but only failed the one that he did closest to the fight. And the reasoning behind that was a lot of this stuff, clomiphene and letrozole, are actually just kind of hang out in fat cells for a really, really long time. So they think his weight cut and all the fatty acids being released back into the bloodstream are what caused him to hit a level that tripped the drug test in the first place. Kind of interesting. So if you're going to cheat, don't cut weight if you're trying to beat a test. All right, next one, which is super, super, super interesting. I'm going to butcher this name. Norwegian names are tough. Therese Johaug, who is a Norwegian cross-country skier. In 2016, She tested positive for clostebol, which is an anabolic steroid banned by WADA. On the list, clear as day. It's definitely on there. So she claimed her source. This is nuts. She claimed her source of contamination was a topical lip balm called Trophodermin, which she used to treat sunburn on her lips during high altitude training in Italy. So this lip balm was given to her by a Norwegian team doctor who bought it from an Italian pharmacy, even though the packaging clearly listed clostebol as an active ingredient. The doctor failed to check it properly and gave it to her anyway. So because of this, even though totally unintentional, completely not performance enhancing by any means, Johaug was still suspended for 18 months because the Court of Arbitration of Sport, ruled that she still had fault for not personally checking the medication, even though a team doctor gave it to her, which is bananas. Like, this is just a crazy situation here. So yeah, she had to serve 18 months. I didn't really follow up with this. I don't know if she ever returned to sport, but she was a pretty good cross-country skier for Norway. So, okay, so what the obvious question next here, talking about all this stuff, like what are our chances of consuming an over-the-counter dietary supplement and it showing up positive on a drug test, on a WADA drug test? So I have a little rapid fire of some studies here, a couple of them that I thought were great reads. So dietary supplements is a source of unintentional doping. This is April 2022, this study came out. So 50 studies were included in this. 3,132 dietary supplements were included in this review as well. 875 of 3,132 were found to contain undeclared substances. And with that in mind, 28% of the supplements sampled pose a potential risk of failing a WADA drug test. That was the metric they used to figure out exactly what compounds were in here. You should take a look at the study. It is a wild, the list of stuff that they found in this 28% of supplements that could potentially fail a WADA drug test if you take them. These are all perfectly accessible over the counter. I'm pretty sure you can get most of these off of Amazon. It's really not hard to find this stuff. Next study, intended or unintended doping, a review of the presence of doping substances in dietary supplements used in sport. This is October 2017. So this one, 23 studies were included in this review. They found that up to 58% of over-the-counter supplements in Europe could fail a WADA drug test. And this wasn't included because these were such outliers, but 9 of the 10 studies that looked at only 1 or 2 products had a 100% contamination rate of stuff that wasn't on the label and stuff that could potentially fail a WADA drug test if you're tested. Next one, undeclared doping substances are highly prevalent in commercial sports nutrition supplements. So this is March 2022 for this one. 66 supplements from 22 different companies were purchased by the researchers. 25 out of the 66 products, so 38%, contained undeclared doping substances. So that this is stuff that will definitely fail a WADA drug test in 38% of the products that were purchased. 4.5 of the products contain levels of certain substances the researchers warned would likely impose general health risks. So almost 5% of these 66 products not only would probably fail a drug test, but would also cause some sort of undue adverse health effect from just ingesting it in general. So yeah, it's more common than people think. I just wanted to go through all this stuff and just basically just to shit over all those people on Reddit that downvoted all my comments. Pieces of shit. But I'm just kidding. Shout out powerlifting subreddit. I love most of you. I'd fight most of you if I met you in real life too. So realistically, what can we do? The bottom line here is that unintentional doping is still an IQ problem. Don't take shit that you don't know what's in it. Don't take shit that's not third-party lab tested. There's a great website called labdoor.com. No affiliation, but they have lists broken down by type of supplement. They give it an A through F grade based on what it says is on the label and what is actually in it, and like the doses of everything, how much of everything is in it. It's an awesome resource. It's a great place to start. But yeah, like a good rule of thumb, if you're buying the cheapest shit available, you're playing Russian roulette with whether or not you're going to fail a drug test unintentionally. It seems like a lot of the more expensive, higher end supplements, places that really care about their name and their image and their branding and everything are going to be a little bit safer. But yeah, check out labdoor.com. It's great. Like another, just a final closing thought here. It's kind of a shorter episode for me. And just a closing thought, why are you taking anything? Like, why are you taking what you take? And I mean, I take a whole slew of supplements. I rigorously check everything. I can tell you everything that I take, how much of each one of them I take, and why I take it. But just a point to consider is, yeah, can you tell me what every ingredient in your supplement does? If not, you probably don't need to be taking it, number one. But if you don't know what it does, don't put it in your fucking body. So there's other kind of soft stresses I always ask people about before you get really deep into pre-workouts or even like energy drinks or anything else. Like, are you sleeping enough? Does the rest of your diet look like you're in, like something an unsupervised toddler would be eating most of the time? How are you mitigating outside the gym stress? Like, do you hate your life? Do you hate your significant other? Is your job pissing you off all the time? Is your training plan or your coach fucking stupid? Probably yes to both of those questions. So I mean, these are just things to consider, like things that could be fixed that would drastically improve your performance and your gains long term versus, some relatively short placebo most likely fix like a pre-workout or any kind of supplement that's not rigorously tested. There's not tons of data behind or anything. So just my one rule of thumb here: if the rest of your life is in shambles, no amount of supplements are going to really be helpful or even worth taking, especially when you consider the relatively high probability of unintentional doping. So just know what you're taking. If you're going to take something, get the rest of your shit in order, because just, sleeping a little bit more will probably do way more than whatever your pre-workout is adding to your workout. And just don't be an idiot. That's all. Read the labels, look up stuff if you don't know what it is. If it's cheap, don't get it. If it doesn't say third-party tested, don't get it. Check out labdoor.com. They got tons of stuff on there, and don't let this happen to you. Again, I don't hold Ray super accountable, but it's still his own dumb fault for making a dumb decision, and it's a bummer because I'm a big fan, and I like Ray, and I like seeing him lift weights and stuff, so it's going to be a little while before we see him do that again in a competition. But yeah, just read your stuff, know what you're looking at, know what you're putting in your body, and stay safe out there. But yep, Hamburger Trained podcast. Thanks for listening.